In the Imperium of Man, truth isn't a public service. It's a loaded weapon, and the High Lords don't hand it to just anyone. If you're lucky, you get the watered-down version, wrapped in a hymn, stamped with an aquila, and repeated until you believe it's always been that way. If you're unlucky, you actually learn the real story, and usually wish you hadn't. Propaganda here isn't some side dish to the political main course. It is the main course. The Ecclesiarchy, the Administratum, the Departamento Munitorum, they all run on the same recipe. Hide the ugly, exaggerate the glorious, and make sure every citizen feels like a vital part of something far too big to understand. It's not just governance, it's religion, culture, and survival, all rolled into one massive lie and served with a smile. Because here's the thing, if every man, woman, and child in the Imperium truly knew what was out there, the horrors, the heresies, the Xenos empires just waiting for us to blink, the Imperium wouldn't last until morning. The idea of humanity as a united, divinely protected force would crumble in seconds, so they give you what you can handle and bury the rest in a vault labeled for your own good. The average Imperial citizen doesn't learn history. They're fed it like grok slop, only with more gold leaf and fewer nutritional benefits. In the official story, the Emperor isn't just a man. He's the man. Eternal, infallible, all-powerful, and totally not strapped to a rotting life support chair for the past 10,000 years. He is the perfect, shining God King of humanity, and doubting that gets you a one-way ticket to the nearest firing squad. And of course, the Imperium is the only thing keeping you from being eaten, enslaved, or exploded by the galaxy's many horrors. Which is true, kind of. It's just that they forget to mention that saving you might involve pressing you into a penal legion with a gun that doesn't work, or liberating your planet by burning half of it to the ground first. Details. The Astra Militarum are unbreakable heroes, fighting to their last breath. Space Marines are righteous angels of death, each one a legend. The Imperial Navy are a flawless wall of steel, protecting humanity from certain doom. That's the story. What you don't hear is that last breath part happens about 5 minutes into the battle. Space Marines are a lot less angel and a lot more chainsaw enthusiast, and the Imperial Navy's ships tend to explode for reasons that may or may not involve the enemy. Then there are the aliens. Orcs are mindless brutes. Eldar are backstabbing, decadent sadists. Tyranids are a swarm of soulless nightmares, which is all technically correct, but only if you ignore the messy details, like how orcs can be cunning, Eldar can occasionally be useful, and Tyranids, okay, yeah, they're just awful. The point is, nuance doesn't win hearts and minds. Simplified evil does, and every victory, according to Imperial propaganda, is absolute and inevitable. Never mind that it took 4 million lives, 3 exterminatuses, and a small planet being used as a speed bump to get there. It's a glorious triumph. The rest? That's not in the official record. You wouldn't want to depress people. Of course, the Imperial propaganda machine leaves out a few minor details, like how the universe is full of chaos, not just the messy desk kind, but the immortal psychic gods that want to eat your soul and wear your skin like a party hat kind. They're not just some spooky bedtime story either. They're thinking, scheming, and disturbingly good at interior decorating if you're into blood fountains. The Ecclesiarchy would rather you didn't know about them, because knowing invites curiosity, and curiosity in the Imperium is just a fancier word for heresy. Then there's the little matter of scale. You've probably heard the news call it a minor setback, when a Xenos fleet wipes out an entire sector. The truth is, imperial worlds drop like flies: demonic invasions, cult uprisings, alien conquests. It's so routine, it might as well be in the weather report. Today's forecast: partly cloudy with a 90% chance of tyrannid digestion. Meanwhile, the people in charge, the administratum, the arbites, even the Ecclesiarchy, about as clean as a sump rat in a sewage pipe. And that's before we talk about the guard casualty rates, which are so high you could measure them in planets instead of people. Oh, and the Emperor? That glorious radiant god? Yeah, he's a rotting corpse strapped to a chair. But don't worry, citizen. Keep paying your tithes, and maybe he'll smile at you in the afterlife. The Ecclesiarchy starts with the Imperial Creed, a galaxy-spanning morality play thinly disguised as religion. From the pulpit, a preacher can turn a famine into a test of faith, a tyrant into a divinely guided leader, and a total planetary meltdown into an opportunity to serve the Emperor through glorious martyrdom. The sermon isn't about delivering truth, it's about shaping the only truth people are allowed to think. Then there are the Adeptus Arbites and their ever-cheerful colleagues, the censors. These are the people who decide what words are safe and what words earn you a public flaying. Historical records are sanitized until the past reads like a series of unbroken triumphs. A centuries-long highlight reel with all the ugly bits edited out. Entire events vanish from archives because they were dangerous to morale, which is high Gothic for inconvenient to the people in charge. Visual media picks up where the written word is strangled. Vast frescoes, hololithic displays, and kilometer-long tapestries show only noble heroes, righteous victories, and the occasional Xeno's head being trampled underfoot. The message is simple: the Imperium always wins. Education is just propaganda in a school uniform. Children grow up learning more about the Emperor's divine smile than about basic mathematics, and obedience is the only critical thinking skill worth teaching. For the stubborn ones who still doubt, suppression protocols serve as a friendly reminder: public purges, heretics burned in the square, and the crowd reminded that this is what happens when you fall away from the light. It's not just punishment, it's theater. The Imperium doesn't just want control of your body, it wants the inside of your skull, and it's willing to redecorate. When it comes to chaos, the Ecclesiarchy's greatest weapon isn't the bolter or the flamer, it's a carefully curated vocabulary. The very word warp is seldom uttered outside of sanctioned circles, and when it is, it's painted as a distant, abstract realm rather than the roiling hellscape it truly is. Chaos itself is never presented as a cosmic force with gods and agendas. Instead, it's reduced to the blanket term heresy, a label vague enough to be used on everything from demon worship to failing to pay your tithe. By stripping the enemy of its name and nature, the Imperium robs the people of the ability to even conceptualize what they're up against. You can't rebel against something you can't properly describe. Official explanations for cult activity follow a rigid template. Blame Xenos infiltration, political sedition, or the vague notion of disloyalty. Never demonic possession. Never the influence of powers beyond the veil. The same pattern holds for the Astartes. Entire chapters can vanish into the eye of terror, but the Administratum's records will quietly mark them as lost in the line of duty, their heraldry locked away, their names struck from the rolls. Even the most dramatic events, such as full-scale demonic incursions, are shrouded in silence. Civilian witnesses are protected from the truth via swift execution, a mercy killing doubled as an information control measure. planetary governors themselves are often fed only the most sanitized reports, lest panic ripple through their command structure. And if these omissions also happen to protect the Ecclesiarchy's image as the sole shield against corruption, well, that's just the Emperor's will at work. At least, that's what the paperwork will say. The Imperium is too big for the truth. That's not an exaggeration. We're talking about an empire so sprawling that if you sent a message from one end to the other, by the time it arrived, the sender's home planet might have already been eaten by tyranids and turned into soup. In a realm that massive, panic doesn't spread like wildfire. It spreads more like a virus. One whispered rumor about demons, or the fact that the Emperor's not exactly chatting back to his worshippers, could send whole hive cities into riots before the Arbites even knew something was wrong. Fear of the unknown doesn't just cause unrest, it shatters planetary economies, collapses local governments, and leaves gaps for actual chaos cults to swoop in. And here's the ugly truth. Ignorance really is a shield. Knowing about chaos is like staring at the sun. Sure, it's fascinating, but after a few seconds, you're blinded, and in this case, you're also probably possessed. The warp feeds on emotion and thought. Understanding its nature can be enough to invite it in. The Ecclesiarchy and the Administratum know this, and they've built a propaganda engine designed to ensure that 99% of the population never even learns the word warp, let alone what's actually in it. Faith, not truth, is what keeps people from falling apart. On a hive world where life expectancy can be measured in coughs, the belief that the Emperor is watching over you is worth more than any fact sheet about the dangers of demonic possession. You don't give a starving worker in a rad-soaked hab block the truth. You give them hope, even if that hope is held together with lies and censorship. For all the Imperium's carefully engineered messaging, there's one factor no amount of propaganda can overcome: human selfishness. The Ecclesiarchy might want you to believe every governor is a saintly steward of the Emperor's will, but in reality, many are just petty politicians with better hats. When a planetary governor realizes that admitting a problem could make the High Lords send an auditor, or worse, the Officio Assassinorum, they suddenly forget to mention the Chaos Warband massing in the outer system. Entire planets have been lost because someone decided that their career prospects outweighed the survival of their population. Then there are the Zealots, the kind who treat the Imperial Creed less like a faith and more like a cudgel. They don't just spread the Emperor's word, they twist it into whatever theological pretzel best suits their ambitions. When propaganda gets hijacked by personal dogma, you end up with purges, witch hunts, and sectarian feuds that weaken defenses right before the real threat arrives. Meanwhile, the Administratum, the galaxy's largest bureaucracy, manages to weaponize incompetence. Reports get adjusted to make bad numbers look better, strategic assets are misplaced on paper, and important warnings are filed under to be reviewed until the reviewing officer dies of old age. Add in civilians so conditioned by propaganda that they refuse to evacuate until the tyranids are chewing on their rooftops, and you have a recipe for disaster that no amount of spin can fix. Propaganda in the Imperium isn't just about keeping the masses docile. It's an active weapon of war. During campaigns, information is curated and deployed like artillery fire, precise, targeted, and intended to shatter resistance before the first lasgun shot is fired. In the field, soldiers aren't fed reports of attrition or stalemates. They're given tales of inevitable victory, even if their regiment is holding the line with the structural integrity of wet paper. The goal isn't to inform, It's to keep them moving forward when every sane instinct says, stop. Fear, uncertainty, and second-guessing are luxuries the Imperium cannot afford in the middle of a planetary assault. When fighting secessionists or rebels, especially those who were Imperial citizens a week ago, demonization becomes essential. You can't have your troops hesitating because the guy in the enemy trench looks like someone's uncle from Downhive. So, the enemy becomes mutant, traitor, or simply heretic, whether or not any of that is remotely true. Propaganda doesn't just kill compassion, it makes it treasonous. At the same time, it's used offensively. Lies are seeded in enemy lines to fracture their cohesion, fuel paranoia, or pit commanders against one another. Symbols like the Aquila, purity seals, and battle banners aren't just decoration. They're portable psychological fortresses, rally points in the chaos where soldiers can literally see the Imperium's presence manifested in cloth and wax. You can burn a supply depot, but you can't burn the image of an empire that insists it's eternal. This belief can be particularly powerful against chaos. The Imperium survives on a foundation of carefully engineered falsehoods. Remove them, and the entire structure begins to fracture under its own impossible contradictions. Some lies genuinely shield humanity from terrors it could never endure, while others exist only to serve the ambitions of the powerful. What unites them all is their absolute necessity. In the Imperium, propaganda doesn't simply tell people what to believe. It defines what reality is allowed to be. If you found this exploration of Imperial truth and deception insightful, consider liking the video and subscribing for more dives into the lore of Warhammer 40,000. Share your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for today. I'll catch you people in the next one.